Hello, cinephiles. If you don't have time but love a good story, you've come to the right place. Let's get started without wasting any time. In the middle of a traffic jam, Emile and his father Francois argue because Emile did not want to come with him. At one point, Emile gets fed up with his complaining father and leaves the car, so Francois chases him. That's when they notice something screaming inside the car and the ambulance shaking before the window broke. Francois quickly drags Emile in as the ambulance door is pushed open and a half-bird, half-human creature emerges and lands on the roof of the car. The guards rush to retrieve the mutant, but the mutant fights back and screams, scaring the people passing by. The mutant manages to throw the cops away and escape. Sometime later, Emile and Francois arrive at the hospital to meet the doctor who is treating Emile's mother Lana, who has also been mutated into an animal. Over the past 2 years, many people across the country have suddenly started mutating into more animalistic forms, often turning out to be extremely violent. Authorities are doing everything in their power to capture all the mutants and house them in specialized facilities where they will be sedated during testing in hopes of finding a cure. Most people are afraid of mutants. Emile does not want to see his mother because he is scared of his mother ever since she accidentally scratched him in the face. But Francois insists that he is still part of his family. The doctor explains that a new, more modern reception center has opened in the south, and Lana needs to be moved there, and Francois immediately accepts. He wants to move there with Emile so that he can start a new life, away from the judgment of those who already know Lana. Entering Lana's room, Emile noticed a lot of scratches on the walls, so he didn't get too close. Francois sits beside her and talks to her, thinking it will help her, but Emile does not think he understands everything they say. A few weeks later, Emile, Francois, and her dog moves to a new home in the forest. Soon Emile went to school, and when the teacher introduced him to the class, Nina asked too many questions. Emile decides to lie and says his mother is dead before explaining that his wound was caused by lightning. Later that night, the city is hit by a huge storm. There is a power outage, and Emile wakes up to the sounds of wind and lightning. He went to the window and was surprised to see a creature peering into the house. But as soon as Francois brought it back, where police and fire departments have cordoned off the area, it was determined that the ambulance veered off the road and into the lake due to the storm. Francois then fears the worst when he sees police officers recovering the creature's corpse. This is the ambulance that transported all the mutants to the new center, and now half of them are dead and the rest are on the run. The police take a distraught Francois into custody, but Officer Julia assures him that Lana's body has never been found and must be somewhere in the woods. When they return home, Francois begins hanging pieces of clothing on the trees around the house, hoping the smell will bring Lana to them. During class the next day, the physical education teacher makes the whole class play tug of war, and the entire team except Emile immediately falls to the ground. Surprisingly, he is able to hold out on his own long enough until his teammates come back and win the match. Afterwards, everyone is impressed by Emile's strength and invites him to a party. However, Emile is busy examining his finger and rushes back home, where he uses tweezers to pull something out from under his nail, causing him to scream in pain. He was shocked to discover some small claws. This means that he is also gradually starting to mutate. Later, when he looked at his back in the mirror, he noticed that the shape of the pillar had also changed. He angrily throws things around the bathroom before climbing into the bathtub to wash away his shame. His dog joins him in the bathtub to comfort him. Meanwhile, Francois goes to the post office and meets Julia, who tells him that he is no longer looking for her because the government has promised to send troops. Suddenly, a scream is heard as a customer has sighted a mutant. Julia orders her teammates to evacuate the mall, while Francois investigates whether the mutant is Lana. It turns out the creature was a mutated squid, and she was just trying to eat the fish. And when she realized she had been spotted, she threw the box of shrimp and ran away. She continues to throw her food at her Julia while giving chase, but it wasn't enough to stop her trained police officer, so Julia jumps at her to catch her. Francois looks under a grocery display and finds another mutant looking very frightened, but decides not to call the police. The next Friday, Emile goes to a party and has a great time. His classmates are impressed by the sword he brought with him to give a lecture at the upcoming summer solstice festival. Suddenly, Emile becomes unwell from the alcohol and falls off his seat. It surprises others. Embarrassed, Emile runs away through the forest and hears the voices of other mutants. The next morning, Emile wakes up near the lake and hears the noise of a motorboat passing by. He found blood in his mouth and immediately vomited before walking away, seeing anti-mutant graffiti on his way home. Upon arriving home, he rushes to the bathroom, throws up a feather, and realizes he ate a bird last night. Francois and Emile then go looking for Lana in the woods, ignoring the police fence. Emile asks his father how he felt when Lana started changing, and Francois explains that he was never afraid. As night fell, they continued their search in the car, playing Lana's favorite song at full volume. They end up spending the night in the car, and in the morning, Emil notices that his nails have changed again. Suddenly, the family dog runs away, and when Emil runs after him, he finds a baby chameleon in a tree. At that moment, the Birdman at the beginning slams Emil to the ground and begins hitting him with his wings, damaging his shoulder with his claws and causing it to bleed. However, when the man looks into Emil's eyes, he realizes that he is also a mutant, and he freezes. When Emil screamed, Francois ran up to his son and grabbed his arm, begging him to stay away from the Birdman. When they get back in the car, Francois tells him he's going to the hospital, but Emil refuses. They get into an argument and nearly collide with a horse, but Francois stops the car just in time, and the two find themselves at a riding school. The police are nearby, and Julia explains that a mutant attacked the horse, so Francois uses the opportunity to ask for a favor. In the end, the military nurse gives Emil the stitches he needs. Later, back at home, Emil has his stitches removed and begins to lick his dripping wound. Sometime later, during a lab class, Emil notices that Nina is wearing a feathered necklace, similar to the one he vomited on, and panics. But Nina quickly draws his attention to it. Then, you will be distracted by the cries of the ferret in the cage, and will not be able to concentrate. Finally, he grabbed her and yelled at her, telling her to shut up. After school, Emil found it difficult to ride his bike due to changes in his body. Nina tries her best to support Emil, including inviting him to her home. When Emil is preparing a snack, he opens the refrigerator and finds a dead bird. Nina explains that she found him at her front door after a party and took his feather instead of a necklace. Emil realizes that he did not eat it and left it as a gift for her. Emil then goes into the lake and catches a fish with his own hands, which is seen by his neighbor. He then searches for the Birdman, who keeps falling to the ground while trying to fly. Emil gives him a fish and finds out that he calls him Fix because he cannot remember his real name. When he sees Fix's wounds from his failed flight, Emil points out that there's a safer place to practice and takes Fix to a lake. When Emil removes all the branches from the water to avoid further injury, Fix agrees to practice there. That night, Emil tries to ride his bike home, but he keeps falling, so he decides to leave his bike in the woods and tell his father that it was stolen. Meanwhile, Francois is very uncomfortable when he finds out that the owner is making anti-mutant t-shirts at the bar where Francois works. Later, while taking out the trash, he hears a noise in the backyard and is suddenly grabbed by a mutant who slams Francois to the ground. Realizing that the monster is chained, Francois attempts to calm it down peacefully, only to witness a second mutant escape. That's when her colleague pushes the creature back with an oar, revealing that the mutant is a relative of hers and that she was hiding him at work. She and Francois try to get the creature back into its hiding place, but the mutant freaks out and charges in front of the bar, causing everyone to panic. Thinking that the other creature might be Lana, Francois runs into the forest and finds his wife in full bear form. His wife spoke loudly to him before leaving. Later, during lunch at school, Emil feels something in his mouth and suddenly spits out his teeth. Others are disgusting and act like baby teeth. In the afternoon, he visits Fix. Fix falls into water many times while trying to learn to fly. While Fix is resting, Emil examines the injury and removes the bandage on his face. He discovers that doctors have performed a gruesome surgery to remove the growing beak. In the evening, Julia goes into the forest with Francois to look for Lana, but every time she sees a police car passing by, she has to hide. But Francois is shocked to find Emil's bicycle. When Francois returns home, he finds the bathroom sink clogged and disconnects his pipe to drain the water. There was a large amount of hair and some nails inside, and I finally noticed that Emil was also changing. When Emil returns home, Francois shows him his fingernails and bicycle, but Emil denies everything. Francois locks the house and won't let him in until he confesses. So Emil tries to escape. Francois, distraught, chases him, knocks him to the ground as he falls, and hugs Emil tightly. The next morning, Emil eats directly from the plate without using a fork, but Francois remains cooperative. He also shared some of Lana's medication to help Emil control his impulses during class. Francois then checks Emil's mouth and confirms that the fangs have returned for now. He reminds his son to cut his nails every day and stuffs his ears with cotton before covering them with his hair, so his enhanced hearing isn't overwhelmed by noise. Finally, Francois shows Emil how to apply hair removal cream on his body. Later that day, Emil talks on the phone with Nina while walking outside the house. He asks Nina to scream, and when she screams, he is happy to hear her voice from there. The next day, Emil visits Fix and finds that Fix can no longer speak, and that he can only make bird noises. After Emil hugs him, Fix climbs a tree and jumps, showing that he is finally able to fly and that he is having a lot of fun. Afterwards, Emile goes to a festival where his father works. Francois becomes angry at Emily, seeing him since he was supposed to be hiding, and an argument breaks out, which quickly escalates into a physical attack. Emile growled and bit his father's shoulder, refusing to let go until Francois threatened him with a pair of scissors. Angry and confused, Emile leaves and bumps into Nina. He invites him to take a walk in the cornfield. The teens end up kissing. They then return to the festival, and Emile goes to the bathroom, where he is cornered by a classmate who saw him and Nina in the field. The man uses a small machine to make sounds that only animals can hear, and soon it hurts Emile's ears. Emile, startled, attacks the boy, leaving scratches on his face. Emile immediately runs and hides in a field while the boy warns all the locals. They then grab their weapons and called the police. A dog soon finds him, but Emile barks and chases him away. Upon seeing the dog running, 2 men fired shots in that direction. Emile ran as fast as he could with a crowd of people chasing him, and when the man tried to shoot him, Fix flew in and knocked him off, killing him with his claws. Fix then dashes into the forest, with Emile following. A police car also follows them, and Emile crosses the lake to stop them, but the irritated men fire from across the water, sadly hitting Fix. Emile immediately ran to his friend and he cried as Fix passed away in his arms. Meanwhile, as military trucks head into the forest, large mutants roam the streets. The next day, Emile hides in the forest and eats all the fruit he finds. In the evening, he climbs a tree and joins the chorus of nocturnal creatures with his howl. The next night, Emile hides in a cave as a storm hits the area. He gets scared when a bear approaches, but then realizes it is his mother. The two express their love for each other by bumping foreheads, and then Lana leaves, asking her son to follow her. In doing so, Emile discovers that many mutants, including the chameleon girl, live in harmony. Just then, I saw a flare being fired into the sky. This means the military has discovered the flare. Emile and the other mutants try to run and hide, but the soldiers take advantage of the painful sounds, forcing the mutants to fall to the ground in agony and become trapped. Later, at the police station, Francois helps Emile explain that he was drunk and accidentally came to the forest.